I remember hearing over and over again, and they were like, expand your network, lean on your network. And I didn't believe that until I started my own business.
So, hi, Cassandra. Welcome to the Meetup spot.
Hi, it's nice to meet you.
I'm back in Ohio now, and
Yeah.
and okay, what to say? Coming from Ohio, what can you tell us about Ohio?
You're mentioning that the weather's pretty good where you guys are at. It's pretty much the same. We kind of don't have uh a we have really nice seasons, but it goes from like extreme cold to extreme hot. So we're about to hit like 100-degree weather here in the coming week. So that's
Ooh.
going to be a little tough because it's very humid up here too. But over the winter we had like record-breaking blizzards. So we had snow that was I think we had like 3 or 4 feet of snow earlier this year.
Earlier this year. Okay, so considering that we're in the we're in the 2020s decade, are you aware of the memes about Ohio?
No.
Oh well, okay, got it. All right, so here we go. Let's get started. So Sandra, tell me about yourself and your grown-up story.
Yeah, yeah. So I was born and raised here in Ohio. I've been here my entire life. I've done some traveling as I've become an adult and graduated college. But I started very early on as a young kid. I realized like I wanted to get into a creative background. So being an artist or getting into something creative was something I always wanted to do. So I actually stay here locally. There is a school called Columbus College of Art and Design. That is what I attended. Originally, I attended thinking I was going to be an animator, but I soon realized I didn't have the patience for animation. So I switched over to illustration as my major, and I almost double majored in graphic design. And after I finished my time there, I got my first job at a printing company. I was originally hired as a designer, and as I grew into that position, I became like an operations manager there.
And what sparked your creative background?
Uh, it's a funny story. When I was five, I knew when I was 5 years old that I wanted to get into a creative background. I was just drawing because that's what you do as a 5-year old in kindergarten. And I looked to the kid to the right of me and the kid to the left of me, and I was like, I'm pretty good at this. I think I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. And it was just a decision I made literally at the age of 5, and I still am very creative up to this today. And I'll be 35 here in a couple of months.
So 90s kid?
Yes.
Okay. And why didn't you have the patience for animation?
I think it was having to do the same thing over and over again. In animation, a lot of times you're drawing just something slightly different or moving something just slightly different from a previous pose. And that didn't entice me. It wasn't exciting for me. And it's funny now that you mentioned that because it just feels like my career followed that same path. I couldn't just do the same thing day in and day out.
Hmm. Okay. So Cassandra, why do you do what you do?
So I left that printing company and I became an operations consultant. So now I meet with businesses and I talk to them about whatever problems that they're having and how we can implement changes into their business. And my biggest why is I want to give business owners the tool set to create better environments for their employees. As somebody who's worked for jobs that I absolutely did not like working in, or I felt like I was being taken advantage of, all the way to working for somebody who I felt cared about me and cared about my growth. I think that there is something about the current work culture, specifically in America, that doesn't take employees accountability in first. Like they don't care about employees first. And I want to kind of change that conversation about focusing on employees, but also in a way that still means the business can be profitable. So it's not like giving up profitability to take care of employees, but more of putting things into place to make employees happier that aren't necessarily money driven.
Oh, so finding balance, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned you worked at a printing company and eventually become operations manager. So, as a
Yeah.
creative strategist and operations innovator, how did those experiences led you to become one?
Yeah, I think having a creative background means that my brain works a little bit differently than some people who are way more analytical. And you see a lot of people who are very analytical running businesses. And getting into an environment that I wasn't familiar with, I always asked a lot of questions of why. Like, why do we do it this way? Why not this way? Why that way? And the business owner that I used to work for was just very open to that. And he would always respond with, "Oh, nobody's ever asked this before." And I think being a creative lends itself to that of challenging the status quo.
That's interesting. You're curious. You're curious about the whole operation, and I'm glad that you're blessed. Yeah, to have a boss that's that's at least open or at least willing to tell you about how things work.
Yeah.
Hey, let's see. So how did you start Unlucky Umbrella?
Yeah, so the previous company I worked for, the owner ended up having to close for just personal reasons. And for me, I didn't see myself jumping back into working for somebody else or another W-2 job. The later years of that business closing, I was doing some very light consulting work with a construction company.
Oh.
And I decided instead of going back and working for somebody else, I wanted to start my own thing and see if I can go anywhere with this type of consulting.
Mm. So and what were like the early stages of that? How did you deal with how were you persistent though and starting that? I
Yeah,
don't
I yeah, I think that my network was a huge help. And that's something going through college I remember hearing over and over again, and they were like, expand your network, lean on your network. And I didn't believe that until I started my own business and I realized how important having a network was for me to grow. I think I just had somebody today ask me that wanted to get into consulting, but they're running a business right now. And they said, "What would be your advice if you wanted to get into consulting?" I told them was keep your 9 to 5 and for 2 years work on expanding your network, building out, getting consulting gigs first. And then once you have enough gigs that are feeding you, then leave your 9 to 5 and go full time. I didn't have that opportunity because the business I worked for closed, but I did have some savings. So that was a huge help for me that I used some of that savings to help hold me over as I built that network.
Oh, nice. So building your network. So what was building your network like?
A lot of it was there's a lot of leaning into people that I've known over the years in the industries that I've worked for. So reaching out to them, whether that's on LinkedIn, email. I actually send letters in the mail sometimes to people
Oh,
to reach out to people that way. On top of that, I do a lot of like networking events. So locally, I'm attending a ton of different networking events. I've also joined local chapters of Chamber of Commerce's. So there's, most cities have a couple different chambers because they have a couple different, like, cities attached to the metropolis. That's how Columbus is. We have a ton of cities surrounding us. So I've joined those chambers and I've worked on like speaking arrangements as well.
nice. So based on what I'm hearing so far, you did some cold emailing or cold mailing.
Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of warm because I know the people at least, but
Oh.
the emails are kind of out of nowhere. So they're out of years of maybe not being in contact with the individual and then reaching out to them to try to reconnect.
Mm. And networking skills. So how did you get those networking skills? Did you have them? Did you have them handy when you were networking with people, or you never had networking skills to be? around that time?
I I would say like I had some experience from my previous job, but not a
Oh,
lot.
okay.
I worked, mostly customer service facing, which helped a little bit on the communication skills, but networking, I didn't know how to leverage who I am and what I do and make the most out of networking opportunities. I've switched from trying to make a sale to more trying to be helpful. And a lot of times that means that I may not get a sale right away. I may not get a new client right away or a new lead right away, but it builds this trust that when people meet me, they know that they can trust me and that I don't have ulterior motives within the communication.
Hmm. Why call the consultancy Unlucky Umbrella?
Yeah, I have this part of this goes back to my creative background. Part of your senior graduation thesis is to build a brand for yourself because you need to sell yourself as an artist. And most artists come back with a brand that is just their first initials or their first and last name. It's their name. And I didn't want to do something like that. So I did this umbrella that's flipped inside out. And my teacher at the time had asked, they were like, this is really weird. This isn't what most people do. Why are you doing this inside out umbrella? And I explained to her that a lot of times I come prepared for situations, but things go like haywire. Like you're prepared for the rain, but the wind flips your umbrella inside out, right? And over the years, that has now grown into my Unlucky Umbrella brand, which I focus more on. If you have a really good strategy in place, it doesn't matter how unlucky you can be. I can be as unlucky as possible, but strategy will always outwin bad luck.
So, so preparing first, yeah. So at least you're prepared, but it doesn't mean everything's gonna go well. Something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always be prepared. And again, it's what I do for my businesses. The way that I pitch it is it's business growth based off of strategy, not luck. If you rely solely on luck, something's going to go wrong eventually down the line. But if you have really good strategies in place, you'll always be set.
Hmm, nice. And so when did you start Unlucky Umbrella?
We started back in 2024. So we will be
Oh,
2 years old in September of this year.
cool. Nice. So you're still starting out, or
Yep, yeah, I would still say we're in our early phases, dealing with a lot of like growing pains of as we get new customers, how do we manage that extra workload and hand off some of that workload, as well as still trying to grow. So I told somebody earlier today, I'm fed, but I'm still hungry, right? Like I'm being fed right now, but I'm still very hungry for more.
nice. So September 2024. How long did it take for you to get your first client?
When I left that previous company, I actually had a client follow me into this new kind of like business venture that I started. And that's where, my advice is if you want to get into consulting, have a couple of clients lined up if you can as possible, right? And then kind of jump into consulting full time. Uh, Post that, I think it took me about 3 or 4 months to get another client. So, on regular, I get a couple of clients or a couple of projects typically every month or two, but it's the recurring clients that make the biggest difference.
Recurring clients. So before this 3 to 4 months, and as time get on goes on, how many what's how many okay, I'm trying to form something here. So you
Yeah.
said, yeah, you had three, so yeah, 3 to 4 months initially until you get a new client. How about now? How many months do you take, or how many weeks?
It takes a lot longer now because I've shifted my business. I focused more on creative in the early days of the business where I was selling, branding, design, websites, that kind of stuff. But now I've shifted more towards the operations consulting side of the business. That is taking about 6 months to even as long as a year to kind of close the gap from lead to customer.
Oh, so 1 year. So I mean. So if it takes a year, what do you usually do to just pass the time, to keep the business going?
Yeah, yeah, I do have other clients that are currently
Oh,
recurring. They definitely
yeah.
keep me busy.
Oh,
Once
that
somebody
correct.
starts working with me, they tend to want to continue to work with me and send more business my way because I'm normally someone who helps close projects. So a lot of, medium-sized businesses, they're big enough that they have budget to, have a marketing person or not have a marketing person, but have a marketing budget, have some budget for projects, but they don't always have somebody to help them execute. And that's where I get involved. So I'm normally that person that they can hire on for, a part-time job where they're like, okay, we're going to do, 20 hours a month with you to complete this project. So then I jump in and do that. So yes, I'm working on closing new leads, which they can take a very long time to close. But in the meantime, my current customers are keeping me pretty busy.
Mm, nice, 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 nice. So 3 to 4 months. So initially September 2024, 3 to 4 months. I forget. But for that first client, what were the problems the client has had, and what were all the ideas you gave to that client?
Yeah. One of the things that the client initially had is they felt like they weren't getting enough leads. They felt like not enough people were calling them and they wanted to increase their marketing budget. They were looking to spend, anywhere from another 20 to $40,000 on marketing. So I told them before we spend that money, let's look into how your current marketing is performing. And when I looked into the data, it turned out they weren't picking up about 50% of their phone calls. So I told
Oh,
them, yeah, I said, hey, listen, we can spend a lot of money on marketing, but if you don't pick up the phone, it's not going to make a difference. You're going to still feel like you're not getting enough leads. So what I did for them instead is get them set up with a call center. I coordinated with the call center. I vetted all the different call centers that they could have worked with, found the best fit for them. I helped set up the script and train their employees on how the call center works and interacts with their current business. And that one change, it costed them about $10,000 between the call center's cost, which is the majority of it, and then my rate of getting it all set up. So they made a $10,000 investment and they grew $900,000 after making that investment. So very small investment for a very huge return. Those are the types of things that I do for businesses.
I like how you built that. So when you gave that call center, it just you asked some local call centers who would who would do their work for them.
Yeah, so the way that they were having employees pick up the phone, but the employees were often being pulled into other directions, like answering other client phone calls. So they couldn't take the time to pick up for every single lead that called in. So that's what the call center does for them. So the call center will pick up every single lead that comes in and then either book the lead if it made sense or forward the lead's phone like call to somebody within the business to answer, say, questions.
Hmm. Okay. So as of now, you're still keep on getting new clients, or not much new clients, but you're still keeping some recurring clients.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of current clients that I work with on the regular. Newer clients, because the sales cycle is so long, I'm not getting as many new clients, but I am working with a ton of different people on finding ways to get new leads. I'm working on doing more speaking arrangements like this type of podcast to get in front of more people so that they understand the type of work that I do because it is very high level and it can be sometimes hard to understand if you've never tried to fix your business on the operation side. A lot of businesses focus a lot on marketing and sales, and I'm trying to get businesses to shift and think a little bit more about their operations.
That's nice. And how do you keep on refining your skills in consulting?
Did you ask how do I keep on refining the skills?
Yes. How do you keep
Yeah,
on? Yes. Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of it is documentation. So if something goes wrong, right? If I do something and I felt like it didn't go as smoothly as I wanted to go, I document that. So I write down what went wrong and what kind of things I can implement in the future to make it better. And a lot of it, it's just like any other skill, it's all practice, right? So as I work with people and talk with people, I'm always paying attention to how others react to the work that I'm doing for them and finding better ways to either communicate or streamline the information that I'm trying to share with all of my customers.
Hmm. Okay, how do you stay motivated to keep doing what you do?
That's a really good question. For me, it's not wanting a W-2 job. I know that's like a weird motivation, but I worked for a really good manager in my previous job, and I think they're too far and few between. I also and I don't see myself working under somebody anytime soon, but I also feel like I want to make a difference culturally and I want to be a thought leader. And it's really hard to be a thought leader when you work for somebody else, right? So that's what motivates me the most is I want to make a difference and I can't make a difference if I'm stuck in a W-2 job. So that's why I keep working really hard for myself.
Mm. And again, like, about again, talking about the idea of having too many recurring. How do you stay organized on that?
Yeah, it's a lot of building processes and systems. I follow a strict like emailing organization process called Inbox Zero. It's actually something that I teach some of my clients if they want that kind of implementation within their business. But that's one of the main ways that I stay organized. So I use a couple of different systems and tools. I'm big on like the Microsoft Planner tool, and then I take tons of notes within OneNote and Microsoft Loop, but on it all is really controlled within my email and me practicing that inbox zero.
Inbox zero. I think that's your way of time management skills. Because I'm asking this because the last time I had someone from Ohio come in the show. She's someone now and one who's good at time management skills. Her name is Allison Blakeman. Do you know her?
No, I'll have to see if I can connect with her on LinkedIn.
Well, yeah, she does. She's good at time management skills and all that stuff. And balances out and also balances out being a couple being a, being a member of like four Toastmasters clubs. And
Oh,
honestly,
cool.
and also I'm also trying to figure out which parts of job she works in. But yeah, all I know so far is that she's good at time management skills, and I think she also said something about inbox zero.
Yeah, yeah, it's more popular now.
Um,
I adopted it probably over 10 years ago, but
oh,
you're starting to see it more and more everywhere. And the way I pitch it to people is, the main goal is to have like no emails in your inbox, right? By the end of the day, but it's more about progress over perfection. So it's just a way to manage all the communication that's coming in without missing something really critical.
hmm. Nice. Today, if I'm a business and wanting to help, wanting to ask for a consulting for so today, what does a typical advisement appointment would you look like?
Yeah, yeah. So typically I do a free 1 hour kind of like consultation. So that's that initial meeting. And I talk to the business owner about what are some of the problems you're running into? What are your goals? Why can't you achieve those goals? What do you think will fix those problems? So I talk with the business owner first. If the business owner decides that they want to connect and work with me, then what we get into is I do kind of like an interview process. And I, a lot of times, will interview employees first. So leadership has a very different view of what's wrong with the business and where the business is struggling than employees do sometimes. And employees are boots on the ground, the people getting the work done, the people moving things forward. So a lot of times if you can remove the roadblocks that those employees are dealing with, those align with the goals that the business owner has in the first place. But maybe the business owner hadn't seen those because they aren't boots on the ground. They are very high level looking at the business and how it's operating. So that's typically how that initial consultation starts, and then how the early stages of working with me would look like.
Hmm. And like you said, 95% of the problems in business can be resolved when you focus on processes rather than the individual, right?
Yes, yeah, and goes back to kind of like that feeling I have of improving employees' quality of life within the business. A lot of businesses in management in general, and it's just the nature of the culture. When something goes wrong, they focus on the individual and they go, okay, why did Susie Q do this? What is Susie Q doing wrong? That kind of approach to problem solving versus assuming that Susie Q was trying to do the right thing and the process wasn't serving the end goal that you guys are trying to get. So, a really good example I have is, John isn't missing, responding to leads. He just has poor email organization. And that's where inbox zero as a process for the organization can benefit everybody. So it's that type of stop focusing on the individual and start focusing on the processes. When you focus on the process and the process becomes the bad guy, the whole culture starts to shift. Your culture will shift to focusing on processes, and people stop blaming each other. They stop being defensive because they don't need to be, because the process is the problem, not people.
Hmm, nice. And has there been times when you work with a radio broadcasting client or no?
I haven't worked with a client that is specifically in radio broadcasting. It's actually the other way around. I get clients who want to get into radio or broadcasting in some way, and then
Um,
I connect them with other, local radio stations or people who do, say, digital advertisement with through like Amazon Prime, those types of things.
hmm, hmm. Okay. As a creative strategist, what's a story of a client whose operational problems were particularly messy, and how did you strategize your way out of it?
Yeah, so I had a client that I was doing a lot of like marketing work for them. So we were fixing a lot of their lead funnel issues. And as I looked into their data, I found out that a majority of the leads that they were getting were not converting. And I explained to the owner, I said, listen, your marketing's doing its job. Something's wrong down the pipeline when salespeople start interacting with these individuals. We need to figure out like what that problem is. And it took a while for the business owner to acknowledge that that was a problem. I think they knew it, but they didn't want to. That was a harder problem to address versus just spending more on marketing. But finally, when we did, we diverted leads from some of the poor performing salespeople. We hired new salespeople that have a better track record. And then we started training the salespeople to kind of catch and understand what's going wrong in that process from, getting the lead to the salesperson turning it into a paying customer. And when we made all of those major changes, we saw that the customer increased their sales. So this is just this year. So we haven't gotten the final numbers yet, but this time last year they were about a $3 million company, and now this year by June they're already a $3 million company. So in half the time they've sold the same amount of money as they did last year. So we're hoping for, about $1 million to $2 million in growth this year, just from focusing on this one thing that was affecting their sales.
Hmm. And what are the best lessons from operations and marketing that anyone can use to improve their everyday life?
Yeah, document, write down what you're doing, because it's the best way to have a paper trail on what's working and what's not working. So, on the marketing side, the biggest advice I can give everybody is document where your leads are coming from. So, ask people, how'd you hear about me? If you don't know, right? So, if somebody comes to your door and you're not sure how they heard about you, ask about that, because that tells you where you need to invest more marketing dollars, right? And then on the operations side, it is documenting your processes. When you do something, write it down as you're doing it in a place that you can reference in the future, because there will come a time, 3 months, 6 months later, that you got to do that same process over again, and it's going to take you half the time because you have it written on how you processed it. I do it in my business every single day. I mean, one thing, a really good example is paying taxes. It is not something I do every single day. So I don't remember how I did it 6 months ago when I had to do it, or last year when I did my tax returns. Having that documentation makes a huge difference in your operations.
Hmm, nice. Right now, it's tough for people these days to find jobs. If they want to go the same path as you as a consultant, or in this case, creative strategist and operations innovator, what are the things they can do right now to practice?
I think that it depends on where you are in your career. I went to into manufacturing. Manufacturing is still huge in the United States. It just looks very different than what it did say like 100 years ago, right? But there are tons of manufacturing industries that are looking for people to hire. And that gave me an opportunity to learn a ton about processes. You learn about Six Sigma in manufacturing. But I also, for me, I doubled as like a marketing person. And there's a ton of like small manufacturing plants. I think a lot of people go after big, huge businesses, but I want to say like 90% of the United States is employed by small businesses. That is where the work is in the small business sector. So one thing I would recommend is apply like crazy, right? Throw as many applications out as possible as you can get to try to get into any place, but don't kind of consider the smaller businesses too as a way to learn a ton on the job, because small businesses need a lot more hats. You need to wear a lot more hats in a small business versus in a large business.
Hmm. And what does the work you do right now mean to you?
It That's a good question. I've never thought of that. What does it mean to me? It means making people's lives easier, their day-to-day lives easier, like doing their work easier. It means helping people, small business owners who I feel are very deserving of growth and have worked really hard their whole lives. It means getting them to that next level, to closer to retirement too, right? Where they can finally cash out after working for 20, 30, 40 years on their business. That's what it means to me. It means helping people get to their end goals and be really proud of getting to those end goals.
Hmm. And one last thing to you, how important is a local small businesses?
Absolutely critical. Our entire economy would collapse without small businesses. I know that you only ever hear about the big dogs in news and on social media and stuff like that, but literally mom and pop businesses or small businesses are the backbone of this country. And there's a reason why, what do they call them, private equity is buying them all up, right? They are doing such a great job at keeping the economy running. That's why the big guys keep trying to buy them. So they are absolutely essential to our economy.
All right. Quick fire, answer questions quickly in under 90 seconds. Are you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. One word to describe yourself.
Tenacious.
Hmm. What is your best consulting tip?
Active listening before you try to give a solution.
Hmm. Best artist you love to listen to.
Noah Khan. I'm stuck on him right now.
One everyday item you can't live without.
It'd have to be my phone. I know that's a little obvious, but
Okay. Mantra in life.
ooh, um, embrace the unexpected.
Hmm. Best place in Columbus for a good meal.
Ooh, I'd have to give a shout out to Matter of Steak in Hilliard.
Ooh. Best place in Ohio to go road tripping or travel.
Hocking Hills. I'm a hiker, so like Hocking Hills.
Hmm. One song that uplifts you.
Mm, that's a good one. Defying Gravity, the latest one from the movie.
Okay. Best lesson you learned in being a consultant.
Hmm. Don't be afraid to invoice the client for your work.
I see. And okay, so wait, invoice the client. So how much? So how much is your average rate then, if you don't mind?
Uh, it is typically I start at $150 an hour for
Oh,
the consulting. But if it's more just graphic design work, I only charge like $75 an hour for graphic design work.
nice. All right, here we go. Are you already? Already? Let's do a Zoom screenshot.
Yeah.
Again, Cassandra, thank you for coming to the meetup spot. Any last thoughts or comments?
No, this has been great. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and I'd like to say this is the first time I asked someone from Reddit.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It's my first time too. So,
yeah. Wait. Your first time asking someone in Reddit if you want to be on someone's podcast.
yeah, yeah, I've been doing podcasts, but I had somebody kind of finding people. So you're the first time that, like, yeah, that's why I reached out on Reddit because I was like, well, let me see if anybody reaches out this way.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you said yes to the meetup spot, and I hope you're nothing. Just yeah.
Yeah, yeah, same. I feel glad. I'm glad you reached out. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you. And anywhere we can find you, Cassandra?
You can find me on our website, unluckyumbrella.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm constantly there and posting.
Hmm. And again, thank you, Cassandra, for coming to the meetup spot, man.
Yeah, thank you. You have a good one.
You too, man.